All right, take action. Why did I start this? Why are we here? Why did I do this to myself? Why did we all do this to ourselves, right? I started Take Action because I wanted to help entrepreneurs, very similar to what you had said, why you're here tonight. And I think about the entrepreneurial journey and what we're going to talk about tonight, what that's like, and being a business leader, what's that like? So I journaled about this a while back, and I was thinking about it. As entrepreneurs, as business leaders, which you all are in the room today, we see things differently than others. And the journaling that I did was, I see a mountain. I see a beautiful, massive mountain. And while others see this mountain and think the only way to get on the other side of it is to climb it to its peak and then descend, I think of it differently. I think, let's build a tunnel through this mountain. But why build a tunnel? A tunnel's going to come with challenges. There's going to be leaks. There's going to be floods. We're going to lose people along the way. So why build a tunnel? But for me and for all of you, we don't see any other way. Climbing the mountain might be fun and exciting and everything. But for us, we need to build this tunnel. We need to do it for the experience. The experience of building this tunnel. What we'll learn about our friends, about our partners, about our loved ones, about our industry, but most importantly, as we build this tunnel, what we'll learn about ourselves. That experience, that's why we're entrepreneurs. That's why we're business leaders. For that experience, to learn about ourselves. And then, not just to build a tunnel, but we build a tunnel creating a path for others to follow us through this tunnel and to find us on the other side. When we think about taking action in our lives and in our business, that's what we're doing. We're creating a path, not just for ourselves, for others to share in that experience. So that's why I started Take Action. Well, everyone, at this point, I would like to introduce you to our wonderful panel of entrepreneurs, of business leaders. Every one of them were highly successful in their industries, and yet they looked and searched for another experience. Please get your hands together. Let's get some rounds of applause, get some energy rolling in this room. This is a fun night. All right, we can stop for a second here. I want to introduce our very first panelist. He comes to us from the financial industry. He worked for a big financial firm until he found a better way of doing business for himself and to learn about the experience. Him and his partner, Ron Pack, started Trivium Point. Please welcome George Gerhard. And of course, I said his name wrong. It's Gerhard. Thank you, George.
Thank you, Mike.
All right. She is someone who I met many years ago as a board member on the New Paltz Chamber. She also worked hard in the industry and thought there had to be a better way to do it. She is part of the HR team at Den10. Please welcome Giannetta. All right, this gentleman and I have a history. We were Toastmasters together. That's where we met. I'm going to throw you under the bus here. He thought it was to make toast. But he excelled as a great speaker. He was also working for many large tech firms and financial firms until he decided to start his own tech company, Hudson Infosec. Please welcome Adrian Libert. All right, everyone, this is our panel. So tonight what we're going to do, I'm going to ask them some really tough questions about their life and about their business. We'll make it easy for them. And then what we'll do is we'll open it up to you. If any of you have any questions, any comments that you would like, we will open it up to you for that. So do think of a few questions. I will have to call on somebody if nobody raises their hand. But I have a feeling, I already got some eyeballs on me, that's not going to be a hard time. All right, we're going to get this started with my very first question here, which has to do with mindset. Because when we're quitting our business, when we're quitting our job and deciding to start a new business, it's not easy. And so therefore you have to have a really strong mindset. And so my very first question to our panel here, and either any of you can answer this, is how did you prepare? How did you prepare to start your business? How did you prepare to leave the company you were in? And go.
Ladies first. Sure. I'll take the question first, and thank you for having me here tonight. I appreciate it, and thank you, all of you, for being here. For me and for those that we coach, business owners we coach at our firm, what we find is most have mentally left their job 2 years before they actually leave. So they've kind of checked out and they're kind of on autopilot. And it's that 2-year period where they find themselves planning their exit and strategizing about what the future holds for them. So for me personally, I had divorced myself from an 18-year career with a large institution 2 years prior to my departure. And I took that time to, train my mind, prepare my finances, and prepare a strategic plan for what we wanted to launch off the ground. So I would say, mindset, and specifically a growth mindset, looking at everything on the positive side, looking at all the opportunities versus the negatives, would be the mindset I would share with all of you if you're going to go into it to look at. But certainly the big takeaway for me was I find most people divorce themselves from their career 2 years prior to becoming an entrepreneur.
I disagree in some part because I didn't divest myself of that 2 years before, but I started planning perhaps 2 years before. And not 2 years before I started my own business, but 2 years before perhaps making the step to the next level of business. So from corporate HR, because I've been always in HR, to how do I become HR consulting? I always thought of perhaps that next step would be a big consulting firm, like Hay or Deloitte, Mercer Mayer, the ones that are big in HR. But I'm thinking to myself, well, are they going to hire somebody right out of corporate? Can I do that? So I kind of did a step plan of thinking about it for a few years. How do I get to the next step that will then allow me perhaps to do my own business?
Well, it's my turn, is it?
Yes.
Well,
a little bit different.
And before you go too, I think, we talk about this in our previous Take Action, is that what's nice about having a panel of 3 people from different backgrounds, different industries, is that all 3 of them did it differently. And we're going to get into some other things in this, and I know all 3 of you did it differently. You have partnerships, and of you on your own. And so I want us to think about that as well as we're listening to their answers, is that there's no right way. There's just, that's the way you did it, and that you took action on it.
Well, my experience is a little bit different. I had 2 weeks. I loved my job where I was working before. So it was a bank that did cryptocurrency and blockchain. It was a startup. It was a lot of drama that in the end, a lot of drama with no glamour whatsoever. So basically the founder of the company went to war with his handpicked number 1, and what usually happens in a war, everybody in the middle gets annihilated. So I did not plan for 2 years prior. I didn't have a stat plan. I did, however, very irritatingly just buy a brand new Metro North pass for 1 month when we found out that, basically, it's going to be, it was game over. I went to a couple of job interviews. My heart was not in it. And then I remember there were like 3 key moments as we go further, I'll talk about the 3 key moments for me. One summer day, dragging myself into Grand Central Station, thinking to myself, I really don't want to do this. It's 2 hours. An hour and a half each way. I just don't want to do this anymore. Got just past the information desk, dead stop. I said, no, I'm not doing this. Called, canceled, apologized profusely for having to cancel the interview at the last minute. Turned around, went right back home and figured it's now or never, basically. And that was in 2018. And then I met Michael, as he pointed out earlier, that I joined the Chamber of Commerce. I joined the Chamber of Commerce because I figured I knew absolutely nothing about what the steps are required to run your business. I know what I wanted to do. I know what I offered in terms of cybersecurity was absolutely needed, but I had absolutely no idea how to start doing it. So I joined the Chamber of Commerce. That's where I met Michael. And I joined him at Toastmasters, as he said, as I thought it was a food committee. I had absolutely no idea it was a speaking engagement, which I'm terrified of public speaking. Michael is fantastic when he does public speaking, but yeah, for me, that's how my start was. There was no magic master Elon Musk 10-year plan how this is going to happen. So.
I had to do it.
And the other thing I'm curious about, and I'm sure everybody's curious about too, is anxiety and dealing with fear. How you all dealt with that in your different ways, and maybe even how your spouses supported you through that.
I don't think the anxiety or fear ever goes away. I woke up this morning with a different level of anxiety or fear than I did 2 years ago when we started Trivium Point. You learn how to manage through it and deal with it. I'm not going to say it's crippling, but you're always going to have some fear around making sure you're responsible for someone else's compensation, making sure you're responsible for providing someone else benefits. So I think the mindset there is it's about all the folks that support and work with you before it's about you. And if you can frame that mindset up, I think that helps quell the fear and anxiety. My spouse watched me grow a financial services practice for 18 years and saw me struggle to build what I had. So when we talked about transitioning, and I have 2 young children at home and a spouse that's fortunate enough to have her own career and still spend some time at home with the children, she said, go do it. Now's the time. And I have faith in you. So I think just weirdly, we have like a good marriage and I think she supports me. But I think it's also, I've been able to prove to her long term that all the things that I wanted to go out and achieve, we were able to. So yeah, a lot of support at home, and certainly fear and anxiety don't go away. I think you just build systems and processes and confidence in your business to alleviate it.
As I mentioned, I did mine in a little bit of steps. So the anxieties came in different levels. The first one was when as I mentioned, I was in corporate HR, pretty high level position, making decent money, and the company was being sold. And the new owners were not going to operate it as corporate HR. They were going to operate each skilled nursing home as a proprietary building, so they weren't going to need me. So the question came is, do I stay in corporate HR? Do I stay in healthcare? Or, is this my chance now to try a different industry? I've been in skilled nursing for 12 years straight, and it's exhausting. If anybody knows it, there's a lot of pressure. It's just wearying. And so I looked at, what do I do? And for me, I took a job with a public accounting firm because they gave me the opportunity to consult for their clients. But the first anxiety came is that when they made me the offer, it's $50,000 less than what I was making. And my first thing was, I can't do this. How am I going to do this? I can't do this. So I again spoke to my family and I said, this gives me the opportunity to make the next step to get to where I want, which is to be a consultant. And, it's a way for me to still have a salary, still have, working for a company, different industry, but still get to the next step. So for me, it's all about making the plan, working a plan. So I was very, very nervous about taking it and anxiety, but I did have this part. I said, whatever you want to do. And it was the same way when I got spun off from that salaried position to a partner in this business in 2019, where I became a subsidiary of that public accounting as a partner with no salary. And again, fear. Mine was more about stability and fear. My husband's on the verge of retiring. What do I do? So again, it was really about working through, making a plan, working the plan, and can we do it? And does my family support me in this goal? I know I'm very good at what I do, but that doesn't mean I can sell it to somebody else. I know my stuff. We're all probably excellent in our own industries and careers and so forth, but that doesn't mean you can sell those services and make an income that's going to support you, your family, and then eventually, as George said, employees, because you can't grow or move forward unless you can. So that's a whole other bit of anxiety that comes along with this.
That's why I married a teacher. Go ahead, Adrian.
Well, for me, because it was in fact taken away from me, I didn't have that type of anxiety. It was happening. I didn't really have a say in the matter. So for me, it was, okay, now what? take the steps necessary. And once I made the decision that I wasn't going to go back for an hour and a half, 5 days a week, 3 hours actually, because I got to come back. It was actually easier in many respects than I believe than my fellow panelists, again, because it was already done for me. I didn't have to make that decision and give up that security. The security was gone. So, for me, that was
I'm interested in the idea of faith in oneself and the faith that your families had in you. Support was brought up a few times. I'm just interested in how strong a role you feel that plays in building a business on your own.
I would say self-confidence is a massive part of your ability to walk away from comfort, consistency, and really the phrase I use with my business partners, we were willing to step out of the cave and the safety of the cave and go assume some real risk out in the world. And the only way you're able to do that is if you have some confidence in your ability to survive. And for us, I think that was super helpful. And I think it came from just years of demonstrating the ability to be proficient in our profession. And I think that was probably a big part of it. And look, you always have faith, right? So I hope this works, right? And I have faith that it will, but you have to kind of really, internalize that and go out and execute. So I certainly think that's how we felt about it. I think the confidence is a big thing.
I definitely think family support is important. Again, getting to a certain level in your career professionalism, you're working a lot of hours. So I knew that they were already used to me doing that. So that wasn't going to be the issue. But just putting yourself out there and knowing that they don't think you're going to fail. They have the confidence in you. Even if you have that self-confidence, which I think I do, you still needed that backbone of somebody saying, it's going to be all right. Now, especially with me when COVID hit, I had a few months where I'm like, oh my God, I have to go back to corporate HR. I don't want to go back to corporate HR, and it's really my family that gave me the support to say, just hang tight. It'll get through it. You can do this. It'll bounce back. And it did. So for me, yes, I think that support is vital.
I think that faith in, your craft, you're very confident in it. You've been doing it for decades. It's just that now, for the first time, you're doing it on your own, for yourself. And once you realize that, wait, it's the same thing. Now I don't have to deal with all the other people. And that was like, okay, that's fine. And the rest of it would just fall into place. I never worried that it wouldn't work. My difficulty was finding the path for me that worked. But once you realize it's the same thing you've been doing, now you're doing it for yourself with better hours.
I still work 7 days a week.
I think the role of faith and support is so important because when I think about it, and I just use this name over and over again, and that's how we named this event, Take Action, was because I kept saying it in meetings with Katie. I was just like, we just got to take action. We just got to take action on this. But that's why I asked that question is, George, you brought up systems and processes earlier, and I was thinking about that, and I was like, well, what are the systems and processes? And I'm sure all of us want to know. All of us want to know the tricks to how do you start a business or how do you become a top performer in your industry and everything. You can learn all of that stuff, but you have to have faith in yourself and what you were talking about, that inner confidence. And so that's why I just think that that's just one of the most important parts of taking action is having that faith in yourself. Speaking of faith in yourself, the finances come up big time when we're thinking about inner confidence and faith in ourselves. All three of you did it differently in this respect as well. I'm interested in hearing, and I'm sure our audience here is interested in hearing, if you're willing to share, how you were able to raise the capital or come up with the capital to be able to start your business, because it's not free. So someone's got to pay for it. For me, I'm so fortunate that I have a supportive wife who was able to support our family financially while I went out there and did what I did, and then was able to secure an SBA loan, which, by the way, George was one of the key members in helping Den 10 secure that SBA loan. So round of applause for him, please. That being said, George, Janet, or Adrian, if you'd like to kick us off with how you went about starting your business financially.
For me, as Michael says, having a supportive spouse is very important. The basics you think about, your healthcare, your making sure you have the ability to pay the mortgage, the core things you need to worry about in order to live are being taken care of while you're building your business. For me, because of what I do, which is basically computer programming, I have a high, two things. One, I have a high aversion to debt. So that kind of forces me to look at ways to automate as much as possible. I am also terrified of hiring someone. Sorry.
No.
But because now, for me, that was a big fear. When you start a business, you know you can't do everything on your own, but the whole notion that I will be responsible for someone else's family. What if I have to let them go? Would I let it linger for months because I didn't have the courage to fire someone? No. And so I avoided it entirely and redoubled my efforts on automation and thinking of ways to be more efficient. And that's come in incredibly handy when the pandemic hit. Because typically what I would do is go and visit client sites to do cybersecurity audits. Yeah, that wasn't happening with the plague. So I pivoted to do other work that I was doing in a smaller scale, but it turns out to be a blessing in disguise for the pandemic for me because I did cloud migration for small businesses. From one-person shops to 15 to 50, they were all looking for ways to continue functioning without being able to go to their offices. So because everything is in the cloud, we were able to write software for them that allowed them to run their businesses, make improvements, and I'm not ashamed to say it, enabled to enact redundancies because once we analyzed the processes and made efficiencies, some of the staff, they weren't needed any longer. So for me, that was a big deal. So I didn't have to have the massive amount of financing that my panelists, by comparison, had. Also, traditionally, things like loans and venture capital, I personally never felt was something that I would ever have access to. So I never bothered with it. And that's probably a mistake on my part. But when you are in it and you're trying to figure something out, you don't have the luxury of, well, at least I feel I had the luxury of trying to figure out, well, should I go to venture capitalists to get this particular project going? Should I approach a bank? I figured, let me see if I can do it on my own first with the resources that I had. I had a 6-year-old MacBook Pro, which is the one thing they gave us when they fired us all. So that was really nice of them. And then I took it from there, and I'm able to do all this by automating a lot of my workflows, automating my clients' workflows, finding efficiencies. And I'm now at the point where I do actually have hours.
I can help you with that.
Okay. So that was basically, I didn't have the financial resources, but I also didn't have any debt. That was critical. Debt is evil. Sorry. But that is,
So I do know, yeah.
I am. To me, it's always this fear of that's one of the fears. And I'm sure we talk more about our fears. That fear of it fails, and now I have to pay it back because for some reason they want their money back. I decided let me just see if I can do this on my own. And whatever I couldn't do on my own, I wouldn't do. I'd find a way around it or not do it, and do something else. But the debt was a terrifying thing to me, and I didn't want to touch my 401k or anything else like that. So
something I got myself into multiple times.
We know that. So yes, the financing part was a little bit different in my arena. So I also do consulting for small businesses, HR consulting, compliance, federal, state laws, search, employee relations, guidance, things like that. So I'm the product. It's a service, but it's just me. I'm the one so there's not a lot of overhead. But my issue was, again, suddenly going from a salary to no salary. But I did have, my husband was still working at the time and did carry all the benefits, so I didn't have to worry about that part of it. However, so the CPA firm that I was affiliated with, I had built up a clientele while I was doing HR for the firm of their clients. So I knew that I could sustain at least that level of business coming in. And that's one reason why they spun me off into a separate LLC. And when they made me the partner, but when that happened, I thought I was going to be salaried. Oh, I'm running it and I'm salaried. When they said no, I'm like, holy moly, now it's all on me. So I kept expenses very low. I didn't spend anything. And they funded a loan basically for the first couple months, so that it would help float me until my clients now started coming in. And then because I'm located in their offices, it's very, very low overhead for an office, for phone, for IT, for marketing. So was very fortunate in the fact that I built upon an already existing brand. You know, our logo is geese. Visions HR has got geese. Well, RBTCP is a geese. So I was fortunate enough to build upon that reputation, and not having to go out and get a lot of funding. So that the issue I had was replacing an income. So I was a little more fortunate than having to strike it on my own and rent an office and buy a phone system and hire a receptionist. It's really only me, it's net income to me. So, my issue, like Adrian mentioned, was, when now your net income is affected by somebody else's salary, that's another issue with how do you finance it? Can I finance it? Can I then take that hit if I needed to? Because their payroll comes before me. So my financing journey is a little bit, I don't want to say safer, because it was still scary as hell, but I had a lot of support from a company that I was already a proven entity to. So they provided me some financial support as well as business support.
I went out into the world naked, I guess, from a expense perspective. I think, fortunately, my partner and I have a financial background, so that 2-year window that I talked about earlier was our time to prepare for exactly what we needed in capital and exactly how we were going to go get it. And it was a combination of personal savings and borrowing. I do like wise debt, not poor debt, not awful debt, right? So for us, we're a service business, right? So scale is important, and how a client feels when they operate with Trivium Point is important to us. So we knew that we needed staff, we knew that we needed space, we knew that we needed software, we knew that we needed all the things that come along with an organization of 14 employees. So for us, it was a combination of 2 years of disciplined savings that we knew we were going to put towards the business, and obviously being able to support our families, and a wise use of debt, knowing what our payoff schedules are going to be, what our net profits need to be to pay the debt off in a particular period of time. So I think, if anything, we had a little leg up. That's kind of our MO, and that's what we do for people on a day-to-day basis. But certainly, it was a lot of savings, personal capital, and thank you to 1 or 2 institutions for allowing us to borrow some money from them for a short period of time. So my story was a bit different. We did have to risk some of our personal capital and go on the line and borrow some money from some banks and institutions to get up and running.
Yeah, risk plays a big part in entrepreneurship and in business leadership. And when I say business leadership, I say that because I also know that some of our audience members also work somewhere and are at an executive level or are climbing the executive ladder. So those risks take part in that as well. You're risking something when you're taking a promotion. You're risking something when you're taking on a new client. So it's not just in entrepreneurship. But as this relates to our stories here and our journeys, you can all hear that there's a different story. And so again, if you go back to why are we here and why is this name Take Action? It's about taking action. It's about the idea that you can start off and be very concerned about debt, and build your business and build an idea and a strategy around how can I build my business to not go into debt. You can build your business around how will I be able to pay myself? How will I be able to afford to pay myself eventually? And then you could also build a business based off of some smart debt and other plans of action there. The other thing I would recommend, based off of my experience, is that by having a partner like George here that I have, by hiring somebody or having somebody in your mastermind or part of your network that can help you on the financial side to be able to advise you and maybe share with you some creative ways of borrowing funds or finding new ways is also very beneficial. Thinking about our industries and how we started our businesses, I think of a story my uncle had told me. My uncle owns, or owned, he's retired now, farms in the Dominican Republic, some aloe farms and fields. And I remember at a very young age, he was a mentor of mine, and at a very young age, he told me, he said, Michael, the way that I do business is I stay in my industry. He didn't say it like that, but I'm keeping it this way for us, right? And what he meant was, I own aloe fields. And so therefore, the way that I expand my business is obviously through aloe and the sale of aloe and everything, but I also do it through renting out equipment that we use on the farm. So we don't just buy equipment to use it on the farm, we also use it and rent it, and then in other ways, and it just multiplies and compounds that way to be able to expand the business. And that story made me think of my next question for our panelists here, is leveraging our knowledge and our expertise in our industries, and the choice that each one of you made to start a business in an industry you were already working in. And I'm interested in the advantage that you see in that.
That's a good one. I think I would say two things. When I look at the departure from corporate gig to entrepreneurship, I had a business coach, and his advice to me was, on a day-to-day basis, you're a part of someone's plan, or you have to be executing your own plan. You have to make that choice first. And for me, when I heard that, I was like, geez, at my age, I really didn't want to be, a figure in someone else's story. I wanted to create my own story about how I wanted to help people from a financial perspective. And that's where the vision and passion came to build what we have today. And I think that's really where I looked at what I was doing on a day-to-day basis and what I could provide to folks on a day-to-day basis if I was on my own. And the story I created in my mind of what I could provide folks was far more compelling to me than what I was doing. So I think specifically offering more services and the ability to create our own story for our clients was very important to me. And that was compelling enough to make the move. So just, again, to summarize, for me, it was the ability to create more for the clients that we serve on a day-to-day basis was compelling enough to make the move.
A lot of my corporate HR world was as a regional director, or where I provided it to multiple businesses within the company. So I always felt like an internal consultant helping them out. I've always gotten involved in a lot of outside activities, community activities, Chamber of Commerce, I'm a little social butterfly. I like to schmooze around, a lot of not-for-profits. And because I'm a subject matter expert, or the HR guru, as some people would say, I always get questions from everybody. What do I do? What do I do? And I realized that there's so many of these small businesses that have absolutely no clue about what they need to do with regard to human resources, even with one employee. And it struck me that, there's more than what I'm just doing now. I can really offer back. I can provide that advice. Everybody here too, as small business, you have a lot of risk, and I like helping to minimize that risk, reduce their liability, because they don't know what they don't know. And for me, that was a really big impetus in terms of also consulting, providing, being the one that can help them succeed in their business by me sharing my knowledge. And, and another great idea like you're saying is making about, I like the fact that I can pick and choose who I want to work with. I don't want to work with nice people. That's all I'm working with, so it provides an opportunity not just to help and to share my knowledge and to help those businesses to succeed, but also get to work with people I like.
I wholeheartedly agree. To be able to, all the knowledge and experience that I had working in very large enterprises, and I saw all the small businesses and medium-sized businesses struggling with everything from cybersecurity attacks to inefficiencies in workflows. So I thought, well, I can do something about that. And it doesn't have to cost as much as Deloitte and Touche to come in and do it. It was an opportunity for me to use 3 decades worth of, God, it's 3 decades. 3 decades worth of experience and everything, and apply that to a small business and help them succeed where they normally wouldn't. They can't afford an IT staff. They can't afford to hire someone just to manage a server. They don't even know what a server is probably in the building. So also being able to choose who you work with. When you're working in a big enterprise, no, you got to work with who you're told to work with. That was one of the things I figured I was never going to do again. So,
Yeah, I agree with that in terms of working with the people that you like, and I'm so fortunate to have some people choose to work with me. Thank you. They like me, they really do.
Yeah, but you made the effort to go and work with people you like.
When I'm thinking about this, what goes through my mind when you're saying I get to work with people I like and all the different things that all three of you said, I think about marketing, and I think about marketing yourself and marketing your business. And you already touched on the finances and bootstrapping and not really having much capital. How did you go about marketing your business? How did you go about marketing yourself so that the people that you want to work with found you?
I think it's having a compelling story that's very specific to who you want to serve. And it's particular to my industry. If you have that, I think referrals just happen to come. I will say that our transition to owning our own practice versus running our practice under someone's umbrella has been a lightning rod for referral. And for us, we didn't spend a ton of money on marketing. We looked at that, and being new and understanding what our budgets look like, we just didn't think it was in the cards at this time. So at the end of the day, a compelling story, working with a niche group of people, and just being really good and proficient at what you do, I think that's helped us a ton. And look, let's face it, social media for the most part's free. So I think if you're not leveraging or using that, it's foolish. But that's my takeaway from marketing in our first 2 years.
Thank you, Gary Vee.
Yeah, right.
So I'm not good at marketing. I'm not great at all the social media and the podcasts, and I'm really quite illiterate. But I spent a lot of years building relationships. Been very involved, as I said, on boards and in chambers and going to different events and building those, just, getting to know people with no agenda whatsoever. And as I mentioned, I'm a subject matter expert. I have a credibility with that comes. So, and everybody, first time there's a need, somebody thinks, oh, wait a minute, Janet does that. And I'm also never afraid to open up my mouth and tell people what I do. I have business cards no matter where I go. My son's here, he'll laugh because I'm at the beach, and I'll take him out of my beach bag and hand him to somebody next to me on the, at the next beach chair. Oh, wait a minute, you have this? I know, I can help you with that. So everywhere I go, I tell people what I do. And then it naturally flows from there because there's a need. And, I'm very grateful and fortunate to have a good network of people that do think I'm a subject matter expert and will refer me. So for me, it's grown very organically in that manner because I don't have a marketing plan, at all. And it's become who I am, and I think it's grown from that.
One of the critical things I learned, one of the 3 points that I mentioned earlier for me, was knowing what I didn't know. I know nothing about marketing. I know what I know. I'm very good at what I do, but I knew nothing about marketing. I think Facebook is the devil. Unfortunately, you have to use it. These are things you have to use. Like you say, if you're not using social media, you're an idiot. So I decided, I had a meeting today about setting up my social media I gave in, finally, and decided, okay, I need to deal with LinkedIn. I need to deal with these other services. For me, it's been word of mouth, but you have to grow or you die. So for me, growth means embracing the social media, but I'm willing to spend the money to hire the talent to do it for me, because I don't know how to do it, and I'm not going to do it. I'm telling you, I'm not going to do it. It'll last for exactly 1 week, and then it will irritate me, and I won't do it. So it's best to hire someone to go ahead who is a specialist in that and take care of that for me. And I had a great meeting. I'm excited about it, and even more excited because they're going to deal with it. So that's it.
That's great. And Adrian, you're always so true to yourself. Like I said, Adrian and I have known each other for quite some time. And that was probably one of the first conversations we had where you said, Michael, Facebook is the devil. And I was like, nice to meet you. You remember my name. But something else that was just mentioned here was relationships. And I'm heavy on relationships. Most of you are here because of a relationship that I have with you. So I really do value relationships. And I think that that's one of the best forms of marketing is if you can present value, which each one of you just spoke about. If you can present value, share what you do with people, share it with as many people as you can, and then build a relationship upon that. That's going to help in terms of your marketing. When I think about relationships, I think about our businesses and the relationships we have within our businesses. And the three of you have different ways of doing that. And what I mean by that is partnerships or not having a partnership. I'm interested in the idea of what made, like, George, you consider having a partnership, or Adrian not considering having a partnership. And then obviously in between there, Janet has her own specialty there.
For me, it was just a unique experience where my old responsibility at my old firm was to recruit and develop financial professionals. And about 11 years ago, I recruited a guy a few years younger than me, passion, smart, driven, and we ultimately got him to come work with us, and we became very close personally. And we would talk offline about this grand vision of building something bigger and better. And it just fell in line where a professional relationship turned personal. That personal relationship spawned a really good idea. That really good idea turned into, can we actually do this? And then I think more importantly, we have like values. Our family dynamics are very similar. We both come from households where both of our parents were entrepreneurs. So we knew the struggles associated with watching your parents build a business. And we decided, why not do this together? It's better to enter the amount of risk we took on with two folks versus one. And we have complementary skill. So for me, having a partner was a no-brainer as we started to think about it. And today, if I look back to 2 years, it would have been very difficult and lonely to do this by myself. I think the days which were, depressing or off for me, he would lift me up and vice versa. And just the decision making when you're about to make an investment in something or hire someone or take on a project that's over, one of the largest you've ever taken on, it's been comforting to have someone at the seat next to you that's in lockstep with you. So for me, that was kind of the journey to have a partner and why I chose to go into this venture with one.
So I'm by myself, or I started off by myself, I should say. Even though I'm affiliated with the CPA firm, they know nothing about HR. So it was just me. I belong to Society of Human Resource Management, which is one of the largest professional associations for our field and our industry. And, was very fortunate to build relationships with some other HR professionals, including consultants, that I could then, pick their brain. They pick my brain. I use them for support. So they became an unofficial, I would say, partner, especially starting out. So now, fast forward, we're 3 years later, I can't do it all. I'm very grateful that I've grown to the point that I can't do it all. And trying to figure out, what do? Do you hire a lower level employee and try to bring them up? Didn't work. And for me, I had a wonderful colleague who were very similar mindset and also wanted to venture out. I'm like, no, I need you. Please come to me. So for me, bringing her on board as a partner was a weight off of my shoulders, and to be able to really breathe a sigh of relief that I'm not alone. I have somebody else I can count on, and vice versa. So she's here today, and Kelly. And I'm so happy that I did that. But I had to get to that point where my work was enough to sustain bringing on another partner of somebody that I can also share that work with, wealth with, and be that support system. So I think it's really important, if it's not within your company, to find a partner or support system in your field or your industry that you can also count on if you can't have a partner in your business.
To me, one of the reasons that I started my own business was to do things in a way that, at the time, I felt I wanted to do and experiment and do things. And I realized that if I had a partner, it's no longer just me. I now have to take someone else into consideration. And I didn't want to take anybody else into consideration, quite frankly. However, I would expand on the definition of partnership. Partnership to me is someone who I trust first and foremost. And there has to be implicit trust with that person that you're going to be dealing with. Because it is not just in the business, it's also your reputation. And you can't entrust your reputation to someone who is going to let you down. So when work becomes too much and the workload becomes too much, you have to delegate aspects of the business. Otherwise, you're just going to drown. Mm-hmm. So I was fortunate that I'm able to have someone who I can delegate the onboarding and analysis of the clients to. As Michael will tell you, I'm not an extrovert. I'm a computer programmer. I mean, I don't live in a basement, but we are typically not the most extroverted people on the planet. So I am happy that I found someone. I recognize it's a weakness. You can't run a business and be a hermit. There's no point. But I recognize that there are people who are much better at engaging with people than I am. Let them do it. That's your partnership. Let them. You build to their strengths, and it fills in the gaps in your weaknesses. So that's how I would define a partnership. But I still get to do what I want to do when I want to do it. So.
Adrian, something you said was very true. When it's just yourself, it's your brand, it's your credibility. When you bring somebody else in, is like, what's going to happen to that credibility, or if they do something that's not in your brand, or perhaps jeopardizes that credibility. But I've learned on the flip side that it also can promote a lot of creativity and be able to expand your brand in many ways that you didn't by yourself think of.
And we're going to get into some audience questions. So I'd like you to start thinking a little bit about a question, and I'll turn that over to you in a second. But George, you guys, I believe, are coaches or mentors in Traction. There's a book out there called Traction, so I don't know exactly what the program is called, but it speaks about the visionary and the implementer. And which one are you? And when you think about partnerships, one of you are taking on that role of being the visionary or being the implementer. And whether it's a traditional partnership like Ron and George have, or if it's one that's similar to what Adrian was talking about, where he hired somebody as a marketing person. That's a partner to them. I consider Katie a partner to me. So you look at it that way. But I would suggest the book Traction. That being said, I would like to see the first hand that goes up. Which hand is it? There it is. Kelly. Oh, sorry. You're next.
So the saying, you don't know what you don't know, is a common one. Now that you have the luxury of hindsight, is there anything that you would have done in your journey differently?
There's probably 500 things I would have done differently. Every time you make a decision, you question whether or not you could have done that differently, right? I think if I looked at a specific example, I thought we were very thorough in what it would take in personnel to support what it is that we're doing. We slightly underestimated that. We also underestimated the amount of, clientele that would come from telling the story that we're on our own. And I would have prepared adequately for that as well. So I think if I had to put a finger on two things, it would be that.
And what's your name?
Marcus. This is for anybody in the panel. As we discuss, as business owners and entrepreneurs, we go through trials and tribulations, and we go through ups and downs. Could you guys, and this is for anybody, could you guys talk about your failures? And what about your failures, or the biggest failure that stuck out, and what did you really learn from it? How did that failure improve you and your business going forward?
Oh, I raised my hand, didn't I? Right.
Yes, you did.
All right. Marcus, is it?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. My biggest fear, this is the third point, nexus in space-time that made me change direction. As I said earlier, when I first started, I really didn't have any idea
I need running business.
So I joined the Chamber of Commerce and it seems like a smart thing to do. And it was. I met Mike. It was great. The other thing I did was I decided to hire a business consultant. This person was very good at their trade, but as we're working with these different programs that a lot of MBAs use, and you'd like nothing against MBAs or any MBAs in the room or listening in the ether, I realized that they weren't listening to me. They didn't get me. And they were trying to pigeonhole me into something that they had a plan for and a template for. The problem is, I had no idea where I would put myself, much less have someone else pigeonhole me into something that wasn't working for me. And then I realized that I was making the same damn mistake. I wasn't listening. And I started to listen, and things changed in terms of listening to your clients and what the client wants. You know, when you are doing things for so long in a particular way, you know what you need to do to get from A to B to C. But I was doing it based on my previous 30 plus years of experience. And I realized I wasn't listening to what their needs were, what they wanted to do. And I realized that there were ways to achieve what they wanted to do while still staying within the structure I know they had to stay in for their business to be safe. And so it was an expensive mistake, mind you. But it was the most valuable lesson was to stop yourself from going down your normal, everyday path that's ingrained after decades of work, and to listen to what someone else is saying to you about what their business is, what they want to achieve, and helping them achieve it. So that way they feel that I'm listening to them and I'm addressing their needs, but I'm still making sure that they're checking all the boxes I need them to check. So that was my biggest gotcha.
Two of the best parts of that question there were, what did you learn from your failure, and listen? Just excellent. What do we have? Do we have another person here? Do I see another hand? There we go, Wajid.
Hi, Lucia. I just have a question how do you, what advice do you have for being on the career, but after 30 years of experience doing anything, barely doing
Thanks, Eugene.
All right,
like, do you have any advice? Because I have experience, but I don't have the time.
well, I'll take that one. Don't underestimate yourself. You want to become, in whatever field you're interested in, become that subject matter expert, get that credibility and knowledge. I think having the spirit is half the battle, because you have to make a plan, but then you have to work the plan. And if you don't, I had something that said dreams don't work unless you do. So you can have as much dreams as you want to be an entrepreneur, but unless you work it, it doesn't happen. So just because you're young does not mean you can't start now getting involved in whatever industry you're in, getting involved in associations, getting involved in the community. Start building now those relationships. But more importantly, people are going to want to work with you because you know what you're talking about. And they need your services, they need you, or they need your knowledge. So those are all things. Just because you're 26 does not mean that you can't get to that point. Some people at 26 are a lot more knowledgeable in their area than somebody who's 50. But I think it's really important. The spirit is important. Working hard is important, not giving up. Having that sort of an attitude, make that plan, work that plan, and you will get to it.
I would also add, don't look at the age as the barrier. If anything, for those that transition to entrepreneurship later in life have already set thought processes and ways, you might not have established those yet, which would be very beneficial as you start to make big decisions about the vision of a business. So I would look at it as a real big positive that you haven't been, this is going to come off awful, but brainwashed by corporate America, right? So it's not a set way of thinking for you. So I would absolutely look at that as a positive and follow your passion and put those two things together. You'll probably have a really good outcome.
Exactly.
I would also maybe recommend that maybe you start doing something as a side gig.
Yeah.
If you haven't started that already. Are you okay to talk about what your interests are, or do you not want to talk about that right this instant? Go ahead. I'm sure Michael will allow it.
Well, I'm really into marketing and I'm really into sales. Anything really creative, a way to really about it, like t-shirts
Well, that's great. I mean, you've already found a way around limitation was finances. So, but you find you use your talent to go ahead and contribute. So that's fantastic.
And also sales. If you have an interest in sales, Michael can tell you, sales is the most entrepreneurial that there is. You know, if you don't have that spirit in a sales environment, and so many sales positions are commission-based, which in essence is your own business.
So what I'll add to that too is just when we think about this event and everybody that's here, we focus a lot on entrepreneurship, but we are also, some of us here are employees as well. And what you're speaking to is a limiting belief of I'm too young. And when we think about the corporate world, I'm too young to take this executive role. I'm too young to be in the C-suite. No, you're not. If someone sees something in you and you bring value, then it doesn't matter how old you are. It's up to you on whether you want to take that next step. And so you can do that in terms of being an entrepreneur and starting your own business and not looking at yourself as I'm too young to do that. But you could also do that in the business that you're in. And you, thankfully, are with Nicole over here at One Epic, where you're surrounded by entrepreneurs. And you have a ton of people who support that vision and dream of being an entrepreneur. So I would also say leverage that. Leverage the environment that you're in. And the environment that you're in, quite honestly, you're going to learn what in 6 months what takes 10 years for other people to learn because you're surrounded by strong entrepreneurs where you are. So leverage that, and don't think that it's just focused on entrepreneurs. It's also for people in the business world that are also trying to climb the corporate ladder. This last question I'm going to give to Brittany if she's willing to ask a question, because I do know she's starting a business. Brittany, are you willing? Awesome. This is our last question.
So one of the things that I'm having a hard time is bringing to everybody, and for now as a brand new entrepreneur, business plans. There's so many people that I've come across within the past 3-4 months that are business, that are their own entrepreneurs, have their businesses, have had them for years, and it's tough, you know, to really sit and think about it and not have that limiting disbelief. So did you guys, this is for any of you guys, create an actual business plan? And I know that Adrian, you said that you were working just with such a little amount of time. Mm-hmm. Within 2 weeks, did you create one, or was it just like you going with the flow?
It was going with the flow, then hiring a consultant who I thought would give me some more structure. So I thought, maybe I need more structure, because when you're floating around, not quite sure what you're doing, you're kind of grasping at other things to help you. But then, again, the biggest benefit was realizing that your business is uniquely shaped for you and how you interact with the world. And yes, you can do a spreadsheet. Yes, you can do these other things. But for me, that formal structure didn't apply. And for me, it was more, again, listening. When I started listening better, everything else just flowed accordingly, because once I have the idea and I know exactly what they want to achieve, and I can then break it down step by step for what they need, everything is so much easier. It's so much easier. There's no struggle, because it's a clearly defined goal, and we were able to lay out the path. And once you have the path, everything else is fine. I still don't have a damn business plan or spreadsheet. Much to the chagrin of my colleagues, I'm sure. But it's for me. It's working that particular way.
I go with the flow. I didn't have to have a business plan because, again, I kind of have public accountants that did that, and I didn't have to go to a bank. A lot of times your business plan starts because you have to get financing. And unfortunately, I'm a very bad one with having everything laid out in my head. I make lists in my head, I lay out in my head. So I'm not great. My partner's much better at formalizing processes, procedures, I'm horrible at it. But I think that's why, again, it's good to have that balance. I think it's really important if you have any kind of business plan to understand that there's got to be fluidity to it and flexibility because, we'll just use COVID, for example. Business plans should get thrown in the toilet with COVID because it completely changed how everybody does everything. So why I think it's recommended, and I'm sure George can tell you to have a business plan.
My two panelists are going to kill me for my response, but
I don't have one. A written one. It's all in my head.
I would 100% have a plan. I would, for an organization as, again, fortunately, because our day-to-day is doing things like you're talking about, we actually hired someone to help us create our own business plan. That's how much we believe in it. We have a 1-year vision, a 3-year vision, a 10-year vision. I could tell you exactly quarterly what we need to do. I could tell you what our metrics are. I could tell you to a T what needs to happen for the organization to hit the level of success it needs to in the time periods in which we want it to. That just allows us to make decisions easier. It allows us not to get upset when things are bad. And it also allows us not to get too excited when things are good. So I would share with you, read the book Traction. It is 100% a really good place for you to start. When we consult with our small business owner clients and non-for-profits, the first thing we do is go through that exercise in our own version, in our own way. So I would tell you, have a plan, 100% have a plan, and work it. And I will agree, it's going to be fluid. Things will change. The environments change. Your vision on what you want it to look like will change, but document the plan, and it gives you at least a DNA to run your business off of.
And don't get me wrong, even without the written plan, I do have financials, I do review them, I do have realization, I do all that kind of stuff. I just didn't start it with that formalized plan. But I've had to develop the tools over time, or else you can't just be completely willy-nilly. You have to have a handle on, your revenue, your costs. Is what you're charging making anything for you, or are you spending your... So, 100% you need a plan. But that business plan part of it, I think, is going to dictate a lot by where you start from.
I would even challenge our panelists here in that you had a plan. Every one of you did. Mm-hmm. You wrote something down. And so the reason why I say that, and I know that, is that while George might have a very formal plan, and I created one as well with George for my business, it doesn't always have to be that way. The plan could be on a legal pad. It could be, here are the 5 things I want to accomplish in the next 6 months. It doesn't have to be so overwhelming as you might think. So it can start that way, and then it could evolve into something more formalized because maybe you are looking for funding, or maybe you do want to hire other people. And so if you're going to hire other people, the only way you can really lead them is if they know what the plan is. Because when they don't know what the plan is, they get lost in it. So that's very important. So I would say that to you is that don't get overwhelmed by it. Know that there's no right or wrong way of writing a plan. There's just going to be your way, but at least document something. And I believe that all 3 of you would attest to that.
Don't let it intimidate you, because it can be intimidating. You write it as a business plan, and you think to yourself, well, what am I doing wrong? Because it's not working exactly the way the plan is laid out. So for me, it was I had to temporarily. Just temporarily put it aside a little bit and say, okay, well, I need to grow and figure this out first, and then I can come back and be more formal with some things, yes.
In closing, I'd like to leave the floor to the 3 of you. Final thoughts on this evening?
Ladies first.
Educate yourself. Educate. Understand what factors are going to affect your business: economic factors, social factors, political factors. Also, don't ever give up hope. You're going to have ups and downs if you start your own business, or even in a career, not in your own business. It's going to be ups and downs. But I think believing in yourself is always something you want to never give up on. If you have that dream, as I said, you can work it and you can make it.
I would say, I said this phrase earlier, determine if you want to be a part of somebody else's plan or you want to create your own plan. That'll lead you to whether or not you take this leap of faith to start your own, or be a part of somebody else's. Once you've done that, prepare emotionally, financially, and surround yourself with great people. I think that's a big key, whether it's employees or a support system. And then I think the last thing is believe in yourself and give it time. You cannot microwave your success, no matter what it is that you're doing. You need the right ingredients with a set amount of time. And I would urge all of you to look at those things if you're going to make the leap to go out on your own.
I would say if you have the luxury of preparing, absolutely. If you don't have luxury of preparing, do it anyway. And one of the most important things I realized is stay away from negative people. Negative people really, I don't know if it's quantifiable, but it really just drag you down, and it's not healthy. And even if that's a family member, they're not helping. And it's terrifying enough as it is. Especially if it's unexpected, and you are now kind of swimming or sinking or swimming. You don't need the negativity. You need people who are. If you're fortunate enough to be in a group where Michael is, or this group here, where you have other like-minded people, like you sought out like-minded people, that's great. But lots of us don't have that. So all we have is ourselves. For many of us, it's just us. It's just the one person. You may not have, and you need to find that support, but stay away from the negativity. That's a big deal, because that's the mindset Michael mentioned earlier. Once you have a positive mindset, everything else is just noise, and it fades away. So don't worry about that. So,
thank you. I'd like to close with the idea of giving, the idea of giving to others in more than just financial ways. I just read the book, The Go-Giver. It was given to me, and I finally read it. And it was amazing, because on one end, it's speaking about giving, and the more you give, you receive. And on the other side of that, what struck me was I was like, man, this is cool. I'm already doing some of this stuff. And what I mean by that is, when you think about giving, we think financially. We think, I got to give money. But Janet talked about this earlier on in our panel here, was just giving knowledge, just giving your time to someone, giving someone your attention, just giving that. And so when you're going out and being an entrepreneur or being a business leader, give your time, give your attention to others, and that will come back to you. I don't know, they say tenfold, right? But that will come back to you. I would highly recommend to read The Go-Giver. And while we're here, I want to acknowledge the My Goal Foundation. I want to acknowledge Elise and Matthew for being here. Please give them a round of applause. Please do give them your time and attention, and visit their website, learn about their wonderful programs. Please thank our panelists. And finally, I'd like to thank all of you for giving your time and attention for this evening. I want to thank you so much for taking the time out to come here to learn about the Maya Gold Foundation, to learn from our panelists here, and to be a part of this community. Please give yourselves a round of applause. All that being said, I want to welcome all of you to Shotzi's, which is right on Main Street here. We'll be doing a little networking, have some appetizers. You can get yourself a drink. It is a cash bar. But thank you so much, everyone, for coming tonight. And that's a wrap.
Thank you.